Hello, everyone. Welcome to Construction Technology Podcast. I'm Luigi, CEO Provision. I'm here with Andrew from Join and Mike from Build Vision. Gentlemen, how's it going today? Andrew, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
So good. Mike, all's good?
All is good.
Baby's good?
Baby's good, sleeping like a champ.
Amazing. The
10:30
night
to
nurse is working
2:30.
out?
Yeah, night nurse is working out great.
Yeah, that's a high ROI decision. I would
I
recommend
know
it.
it's expensive and but like it's a one-time expense. And if you amortize it over the life cycle of your sleep schedule, it's very worth it. Because the outcome, the success outcome of a night nurse is that they are sleep trained to sleep 12 hours as the night nurse sleeps.
Oh, because the night nurse is a
Correct.
professional who has the
Correct.
incentive to sleep themselves.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So if you think about that, then people are like, oh, you look at it over a 3-year period. That 3-year period, a lot of families I know, even at 3 years, the child is not sleeping through the night. So what is the cost per sleep? The cost per sleep is very, very ROI positive.
Yeah, that's on your investor update, your sleep-based. Amazing. There's a lot to talk about today. A few things. This is the first non-guest podcast we've done in a little bit, but there's a handful of things we want to go through in the agenda. The first thing is MaintainX, purchased by Autodesk for $3.6 billion. Mike, I don't know if you have a LinkedIn post you want to pull up on screen. I'm happy to look for one in the background if you don't. But gut reactions. I mean, quite honestly, MaintainX wasn't on my radar. I was slightly aware of them. I've seen their brand here and there, but a lot of the discourse on LinkedIn was Autodesk moving away and diversifying from design to go full life cycle. They've already been involved in some elements of operations, but this is a decent sized bet. Last time I checked their market cap, Autodesk is around 60 billion. So to bet, 5% of market cap, it's actually quite a sizable bet.
So I think since I joined Autodesk in 2019 at the Building Connect acquisition, that was the completion of the construction stack of Autodesk. They've rebranded to Make, Design, Build. This is the third pillar of that. So they have design, they have construction, and they have operate, which completes the full life cycle of a building. So math-wise, it seems heavy. What was it, 26x on rev?
6 to 7 forward ARR.
They're growing 50% year over year. So I shared with you guys a little table in our chat, but for assuming things go well and that growth continues to not accelerate, but 50% this year, 50% next year, 40% in 28, we got 35% in 29. They're sitting at $380 million of annual revenue. That's only a 9x multiple on enterprise value over ARR, which is not that far for a company that's growing that quickly. With the strategic initiative of them being able to do that, CFO talked a lot about, one, they're growing quickly at MaintainX, so it makes sense. Two, they're going to be able to resell into existing customers. I don't know how much overlap their existing customers are or what they look like. I sold into the ADC space, and I've heard rumors of a JLL, some of the distributions, Prologis companies. So there's a huge opportunity to do that. Cash flow wise for Autodesk, they're throwing off I think $800 million a quarter in free cash flow. So this pays for one thing that was interesting was it was $2 billion cash, 1.6 in debt, or the other way around, 1.6.
Yeah, 2 billion debt is what it says here.
Yeah, so they could have done 100% debt, but their perspective is hey, it's going to pay for itself in 2 quarters. That 1.6 will pay for itself in 2 quarters of cash flow, and they think that the implied earnings will outpace what they were getting on T-bills right now, where their cash was sitting. So I think it's very, very interesting. Again, the bet being that, hey, we now have a full life cycle of an issue tracking process. Again, it's strategic, and I think it could work out, assuming things go well. It closes the loop for design, make, operate.
Yeah, but where's the synergy with their existing customer base? Right, they're not selling this to construction companies. They're selling this.
You consume the artifact generated. They started with design, which is 5%, 10% of construction costs. They moved to construction. Operation costs of building are 10x over the lifespan of the building of the first construction cost, right? And it consumes all the artifacts that come out of that construction process. So it might not be the same it might not be the same customer base, but Autodesk outside of Revit didn't have a large construction customer base when they set out to build ACC, but they said, we have a F-load of, look at me, I censored myself, F-load of cash, and we can plow it in and we can build the distribution over time. So I don't really need it. Like, they can go build that.
And I think it's also a first party data stream to like actual real world asset performance, which historically isn't anywhere else. So obviously you're designing a building. Hey, what is the design quality? What is the actual output quality of this piece of equipment that I'm putting into a job site? And this tells them. And again, if you're creating moats around proprietary data, this hardens the moat around proprietary data and workflows that Autodesk will have.
It makes me wonder what happens to the media and entertainment sides of Autodesk. At the New Orleans, whenever they did Autodesk University, New Orleans, like the most hilarious talk was when they combined the construction and media and entertainment keynotes. And so people showed up, and so you had, superintendents and media and entertainment people like sitting side by side trying to consume like some coherent message, and to add like, the guy who maintains the asset, which is this like totally different audience.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I'm
Like,
sure they're gonna break it out. I don't know if it makes sense to even combine them anymore. It's such a large target audience in construction now. And I don't know, I wonder if any of you have the numbers, but what is the construction business growing at relative to the remainder of the business?
it's
They don't,
mostly growth.
they don't break it out though. It's AEC. It's all under AEC. I don't think they break it out, right?
Sorry, I mean the AEC business.
Let's see. What is...
Well,
yeah.
what was like PlanGrid? Okay, so 7 years ago, PlanGrid, Building Connected, and those are the only two real revenue sources. We're at like 100 in total.
PlanGrid was at 85 to 100. Building Connected was at 13 to 20. Pipe was sub 3. So they bought 100. They bought the same, which was interesting. They bought the same-ish amount of revenue for 3 times as much with MaintainX.
It looks like the
Inflation.
AEC business, AECO, is about 53% of revenue.
Yeah, I would bet that's growing faster than
AutoCAD, they don't. I'm not sure. I think these might be
I think
estimates. but
AutoCAD is a growth market. Actually, no, that's
AutoCAD
wrong. They did
23%.
a bunch of like licensing cleanup, and that actually brought
Yes.
a bunch of extra cash in. Like that was probably needed around the world, but
Yeah.
giving them the
AutoCAD's
cash to make these investments, it's impressive.
Yeah, it is.
There was an interesting data point where Andrew Bay, the CEO of Autodesk, back when we were acquired, that like they had $1 billion of revenue sitting in non-compliant software seats. And that's external of any of the companies they can't sell, or countries they can't sell into, which is like Revit or Russia, China, and Iran. It's pretty wild. Like the footprint that they have is massive.
Yeah. And I didn't appreciate this, but AutoCAD is not even included. Well, it kind of makes sense, but it's not included in AEC, even though it has AEC applications. So between AECO and AutoCAD, you're looking at around 80% of revenue. Media entertainment's about 5%. I'm surprised they never really made, I don't know what's happening behind the scenes, but I'm surprised that they have not acquired reality capture company like
Open space.
Like Open Space, yes, but there were a few that were for sale. One was bought by Drone Deploy. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Struction
Site.
They got bought by Drone Deploy. Trimble just launched 360 cap.
It's a pretty magical product from what people describe. I mean, specifically for open space. And it does obviously dovetail into digital twins. Like that data is very valuable, and only a couple of companies have it.
So yeah. I sold data capture for a year between my Autodesk stints and started a company called Onsite IQ. The challenge is you're disincentivized as a superintendent to capture the entire project. And that was Onsite IQ's position, was that they would send somebody out as like an Uber, almost to walk the job site to make sure everything was captured on a consistent basis. Interesting data point, like the data's valuable, but it's might not be structured in the same way because of all the different pieces that you have to like, because it's a real world asset. like making sure the person walks the same exact path every time so you actually can see progression, then lining up that progression with what's actually on the project. And it's also reactive. Like if you misplace a pipe in a building, like you're still having to do the rework to take the pipe down. You can like semi catch it if you have like a stub up that's 6 inches off before you run it across the floor, but it's still like not as proactive as you need it to be.
That's interesting. I sat down with a product leader at Procore. This was like 8 years ago, 6 years ago, 4 years. I don't know. This was a while back, and I was like, "Oh, why isn't Procore doing anything here?" And I don't know. This is right, and this was a long time ago, but the reaction was like, "It's just a lot of photos. We already have a lot of photos running around in our system. Like, we don't." We're good on photos, basically. And I thought that was interesting because it does, like, on the one hand, like, okay, that's fair. And they're attached to a bunch of other structured information about what's happening. On the other hand, boy, this really does seem magical. And the only like source of truth for a construction project is the actual site. Like instead of deriving information from like people with digital clipboards, you could derive information from like the physical reality and have a much stronger provenance for like whatever insight that you pull out.
Right. And like when I speak to general contractors about it, the killer use case for them is dispute resolution. Anytime
Yeah.
that there's an issue with a
Yeah.
subcontractor, it's trivial to trace back the steps, peel back the layers of the onion and say, at this point, your work was done. Clearly it was available at this date. You didn't start working until this date. It's like going through a time machine. And you end up dealing with a lot of these subcontractor issues. So, it just streamlines the whole thing. So it seems so complementary to the whole process. I'm surprised it hasn't happened because neither Procore nor Trimble nor
Yeah,
Uplands have purchased someone here. And there have been a few companies for sale. Like Struction Site was one of them, but then Avenir was another one that I think was sold. And there's
Nemetschek bought the one out of Illinois.
And there's Bill Dots. There's a couple more still out floating around.
I think Bill Dots is gonna crush. Was talking to head of innovation at a large Canadian general contractor, and they told me the use case, and it was pretty brilliant. So Bill Dots will keep track. I don't know how the solution works incredibly well, but it will keep track of production rates, and it takes customer data, aggregates it, or anonymizes it, and will tell you, hey, your concrete pouring rates are 3x less than industry standard. Something's wrong. So there's like this automatic triage system that allows them
Yeah.
or general contractors to go in and like understand the root cause of why they have schedule issues. It's really brilliant. It's kind of like schedule intelligence from what I understand, but it
Yeah.
uses a variety of sources of information. The data moat seems so straightforward when you have all that. It's like a large customer base.
I don't know. So the like you get the challenge I've heard from the reality capture companies that I've talked to is that it ends up being commoditized. That at the project, like, yeah, we're going to have reality capture on every project and we're going to get the cheap one, whoever's cheaper,
Yeah.
like the month that it goes out. And so you don't like you have to continuously refill the pool of activity to keep the data going. It's not like you don't the ones that I have spoken to, build outs may be very different. Like it's hard to build enterprise relationships, like because it turns out it's really hard to derive anything that's sort of enterprise value from a bunch of messy reality capture data across projects. But I
But
don't know.
how do you differentiate that between like any enterprise solution, even like a project management system? Can't you use the same logic there?
I, as CFO, want clean financials for how much cash is coming in and going out across my entire enterprise, right? And PMI, project management systems, in part feed that, right? We might also have a policy that says we're going to do reality capture on every project because it's better for the project, it's better for our outcome. But I just want to know that you're doing it. I'm never going to look at anything that is derived from like that data. Like, whereas the project management system, like there's some cell in the thing that I might potentially go out to the public markets with that's derived from like numbers that trace all the way back to use the system on the projects. Like that maybe that's changing. And I assume these companies are innovating and finding ways around this, but
Yeah, I'm curious. I would bet that they would make an acquisition here, but actually, just reminds me of something. Mike, didn't you make a prediction that Autodesk would be announcing an acquisition where they'd have to make a public disclosure? I just don't remember if you said it around it was AI or operations.
Can't confirm or deny.
it's a year that starts in two. It's a year whose number starts in two. So Autodesk will announce an acquisition. Like
You need to update your LinkedIn to AEC Oracle. I'm pretty sure you
AEC Oracle.
Yeah. Okay. Here, look at this. Trimble just announced 3 days ago, Project Site 360 Capture, AI-powered reality capture tool now available. Did they build this? Or did they buy someone and not announce it?
I Trimble bought somebody. No?
I don't remember, but maybe. That's cool.
I think the other thing that would be interesting to talk about, I can see it being related to construction eventually. The budgetary issues that large technologies are facing with AI spend. So you guys saw Uber, and I think it was one other company, announce a cap on generative AI token spend on a monthly basis. People were pretty alarmed at Uber. I think they went through their annual budget in like 1 month. The Facebook incentive machine around token maxing had a single developer burn like billions of tokens. And I think you're seeing a reaction to like the questionable ROI. How do you think this is going to impact construction companies? And you can look at it two ways. One, like the general contractor, where they're all exploring, hey, like we can now build a lot of things. And then two, the construction technology companies like Autodesk and Procore.
So I know McCarthy made another announcement yesterday, but during that announcement, the partnership that they launched, one of the pieces that they said was to help them reduce token spend by 80% by leveraging Palantir as their platform instead of going to Claude or OpenAI because of how they orchestrate and manage their chain of thought. So my position, it is going to be a continual race to zero. And I would short, but I would short the upside of the foundational models because like open source will take over.
Open source will take over.
Yeah. There's a lot.
We use a lot of open source now, and that is true.
So you're sitting here. I'm a contractor. I'm a general contractor. Say I'm a mid-tier general contractor, and I spend $300,000 a year on Procore. I have 100 employees. Am I going to spend over $300,000 a year on Claude, or $300,000 or $30,000 a year on an open source model that's 90% there?
Wait, but there's not 10x between those two. Like there was the smaller models from Claude. Like let's just
I'm saying going like straight open source.
But you still have to have GPUs and electricity, which is
they're 10% the cost.
So no, I think more. I think even with the pricing token, I bet, and it's going to be very interesting when Anthropic's S1 numbers come out in coming weeks.
Yeah.
Like I think maybe you're converging to cost with the token prices and the pricing models, like now pricing to cost.
So I think we'll get past this point that everyone constantly wants to use the leading edge model, because we're already looking at this internally where, and we've talked to, so we use Gemini for a lot of our processing. Yeah, and we've talked to the GCP team, and the GCP team's like, or the Gemini team's like, yeah, you guys can go buy $1 million worth of Gemini 3 Pro tokens because we're going to have Gemini 4 in the next 6 months. And if Gemini 3 does exactly what we need to do at benchmark wise, we're going to be at a 50 to 75% discount on the price of Gemini, which is already half the price of Claude. So that whole conversation and workflow of like, if it's good enough already, I don't need a foundational model piece. Maybe people that are on the leading edge of X need it, but construction is not on the leading edge of like drug. I don't even know what the leading edge is anymore of like who actually needs a full foundational model, because like my Uber app has not gotten 10 times better because they're using Claude 4.8, Opus 4.8.
That's Uber.
The argument there is most people need something beyond the current foundational models to actually deliver ROI.
What's a 10x better? I don't think there's any 10x value. Like what's better? Like making you connect better with a driver? Like
ship the app. I don't know. More
so the large contracts that Anthropic has, what if an actual 10x ROI for them for this cost? I don't think it's there for any of these customers.
Well, okay, where I'll disagree with you is Uber is a technology company and they are a very mature product. Construction companies are not technology companies. And if you look at the output, like the code that they will build invariably, it's not like it's not at Uber quality, right? So I think the bar is lower.
It doesn't need to be at Uber quality though.
Well, it doesn't give you Uber quality, but now they have the ability to build themselves. So, okay, I'll disagree with you in two more places. One, the harness is still very valuable, irrespective of the model. And the Claude harness and the OpenAI harness, like Codex, for example, I don't need to go mess around with open source. Like for us, okay, like for one very specific process, we're switching between Gemini 3.1 Flash or Pro to DeepSeek V4 through OpenRouter, okay? It's a 8x cost reduction, but I don't have I'm not fitting that into a harness. I'm fitting that into a very specific pipeline. And that's easy for me. That's hard to do for a construction company because they're probably dealing with the harness and they're probably
But
dealing with the agent, not.
I don't think they care. I don't think anyone's going to care if you're using Opus, if you're using Andrew AI. Like you as a construction user, if you're using Provision, you're going to use whatever Provision offers you. And if Provision's like, hey, we're going to reduce the cost by 10x because we're going to spin up an open source model that we're running in a GPU server in Toronto. So that reduces your total. You as the technology provider is not going to say, I'm not paying $10 for Claude tokens. I'm paying $1
It's not.
for,
You
why not?
spin up a server because you
But
still have the infrastructure cost.
the whole, like those, like the infrastructure cost is not what's driving the top end cost. Like those are the two inflection points that are happening. You're going to see reduction in infrastructure cost. And then you're going to see increase of capabilities of the tools to where's the point, where does those lines cross, where it makes sense for the functionality that you're trying to do. And it hits, and everything continues to, this is Moore's law.
Yeah, there's a lot of electricity that seems to go into running these models. Like even the smaller ones, even the open source ones. Like,
So
I think, but the math on that is we're running towards edge compute where you're going to be able to run it on your phone. You're going to be able to run the quality of models that we have today on your phone in the next 12 to 18 months. So then your electricity cost is zero. It doesn't matter. You're charging your phone at night.
So
that's the technology bet you're making.
So you think you think construction companies will implement budgets? Like that's what your bet is?
I don't think they're going to even notice.
I mean, a corollary of the, so like none of the cloud providers agree with you because they're building out huge data centers that are going to be amortized over 5 to 7 years. And you're saying 18 months from now, like we're not running new.
That's Apple's bet.
Well, that's everyone's bet.
Well, they've licensed it. They have big contracts.
Just sold some equity for this.
I think the incentives are very misaligned for hyperscalers because hyperscalers have now invested in all these foundation models with the idea that they're them, like that's the three-legged stool of NVIDIA chips to hyperscaler back to foundation model. NVIDIA invested in OpenAI. OpenAI pays Amazon.
Now, like what fraction of Google's, what fraction of Gemini's runs on?
It doesn't move them. It doesn't matter. They have the best. They have the best business model in the world. Google's raising $80 billion of debt.
No,
right now.
No, that was equity, but they did a big debt raise.
They're doing a big debt raise.
Raising a fuckload of capital. It's very
OpenAI, Anthropic are also going to raise hundreds of billions of dollars in the public markets, while SpaceX is going to go up.
Yeah, so the price is going to go way up for all the foundation models because like that has to be paid back. Did you see where Anthropic was like, guys, we got to pause like leading edge?
Yeah, because they have
we got to pause.
Sam did the same thing during the Biden administration when he was trying to say like, oh, we have to go through all these regulations. We're going to pull up the ladder for everybody else because they know, I would bet internally they know that the open models are going to get there faster. They don't need all the capital expenditures that they need to actually execute on what we need to see. And they're seeing the line in the sand. They're saying like, what if we spend $1 trillion in capital expenditures in the next 3 years and don't return $10 trillion of value? This is a miss. $10 trillion of value is a shit ton of value.
Let me give the opposite perspective here, because I think what we're potentially forgetting is that both Anthropic and OpenAI signed these gargantuan agreement with private equity firms for AI implementation. And as we know, enterprise implementations are incredibly sticky. So they are effectively replicating some component of the Palantir model where we have these foundation models. Now we're just going to go implement everything in enterprise. Anthropic is a little bit further ahead, but OpenAI will do the same thing. And then I think you won't even be thinking about token spend. Like maybe you will a bit, you'll have a budget, but those are easily set up. The harnesses though will do all the work. And I really have a hard time believing that a CIO is going to say, you know what, let's go open source this and we'll figure out everything else. Because the last mile is a lot of work. The last mile being the harness, how it integrates, the process.
That value is not going to go to that value will go to the whoever writes the harness. That'll go to the firm if they do it internally or to software vendors if done externally. Like,
yes, they could.
Yeah. I think the challenge with it is if you're not seeing the ROI, what you're seeing, the initial point of this was like you're starting to see fractures with large enterprises like Uber coming out and saying, hey, we're not seeing the ROI on the best theoretical ROI return, which is coding
What do you guys
at
think
scale.
about that though? Like,
I
do you
don't think
guys,
for them, it doesn't matter. This goes back to the point is like,
I
they
mean,
don't need to, like, we're not measured. Like they don't need to write more code. There's nothing to change. There's,
well, then they should fire they should fire their engineers. Like,
but they're having to because they're having to maintain it. They're maintaining code bases.
yeah, but it
yeah,
isn't.
And you can't say Anthropic is the best maintainer of code when their website is 90% up, 98% uptime. GitHub's is below 90% now.
I don't.
That's not fair.
That's not. I
That's
don't
not-
know that that's a fair comparison. Like
that's
that's a service that like is very difficult to scale. That involves
Yes.
like big buildings and construction and all these long lead time engineered systems that you got to configure and price and order, right, in order to deliver that uptime. Same for GitHub. Like all the AI generated pull requests led to like it was a business that was probably steadily growing 10 to 20% a year, and they knew how to grow it and scale at that. And then all the AI generated code started coming in, and just like every system is now trying to handle 2 to 4 times the volume essentially overnight, which in a scaled system is
Yeah, Anthropic went from like 3 billion to like 50 billion in revenue, and they had to deliver on that revenue. And like 90% or 87% uptime is like pretty decent in that regard.
I
You
mean,
have a lot of hardware.
no nines is an interesting like
No nines
reliability standard.
strategy.
Zero
Yeah.
nines. Yeah.
No one's talking about AGI anymore.
I don't know. I still see a lot of AGI in my timeline. There's always questions. The posts do keep moving, and that's fine. Okay, let's talk Palantir, because it's very similar in the same conversation. You know,
I don't think it is, but go ahead.
Wait, we also point out that Join got a shout out on the Palantir announcement.
Are you fucking kidding?
Here,
Wait, what?
I think. Is McCarthy a Join customer?
Yeah. They're like one of our oldest.
Right here, look.
Holy shit.
Procurement Join. Oh my God, you're hearing it here first.
Are you sure that's not? I think that you think that isn't join as in like a sequel join? I mean, yeah, it's definitely.
I think it might be.
No, so all of the. I don't know. I saw that this morning. So that what this is showing is so McCarthy announced a partnership with Palantir. There's been a lot of back and forth of like they spent a lot of money to do this, $10 million plus a year. What is the ROI? The most interesting clip from this video, they did a demo for, I think it was like 4 to 5 minutes at Palantir's AIP conference or AIP, whatever they call it, conference. What's interesting about this, which is this like chain of reasoning and chain of thought. And what this is doing is this example that they have is there's an RFI for an AHU model mismatch. And it goes through and pulls like all the meeting notes from the OEC meetings, the data logs, the drawings. And then it like reviews the schedule impact, reviews procurement verification. And then McCarthy has all these SOPs, like a database SOP. So it pulls from these SOPs. And it actually gives like recommendations on what they can do. So they can optimize, they can, whatever domain means, they can own it. Like, and the output of this is instantaneous scenario planning. So, hey, do we pull a substitute from the supply chain or hold on to the architecture's variant? So this example, they had another air handling unit going to a different project that they could swap out here, which is that's a stretch. But or they hold to the current process and what the impact is around that.
Sorry, can you dumb down the scenario again? Like, what is the scenario?
So this scenario is the engineering firm, which misspec'd the chiller. The air conditioning unit. They spec like a Train 750 and it was supposed to be a Train 1000. It wasn't caught. The chiller or the air conditioning unit had been released. So now they're submitting an RFI to the engineering firm saying, hey, we ordered the wrong air handling unit because of X, Y, and Z. So it goes through the process of doing an RFI to an addendum or a bulletin update. But because the piece of equipment was already released, they did an analysis on like what would the change cost be if they shipped that unit to the job site. So they had to change the curb size or something. Or do they pull another air handling unit from a different project that fits that's the pad that's already laid down because of all the different pieces? So there's like 9,000 like nodes that have to connect there. Because Palantir has ontology and could connect all these data sources. That's why I thought it said join, because it would connect theoretically join. It's able to give you a scenario of like pull the substitute from your supply chain. So swap out this Voyager unit or hold the architect's variance and do the rework to expand the concrete pad.
Okay. So the use case here is like, I'm a PM, I'm going over my schedule. I just got noticed that this has been misspec'd. We maybe ordered it and now I need to correct.
Yeah. So it's
schedule.
Mechanical subcontractor says, hey, the pad, we just got the shop drawings for the air handling unit and it's 10 feet wide. The pad that's already poured is 8 feet wide. What do we do? So that's where this workflow is kind of, if you go back here, like this is this chain of thought. So it goes through, does all these things, which I think is what I think is interesting. The suggestions or whatever. What I think is interesting is it automatically, of course, it went to an ad. It automatically.
Hey, we're not getting money from these people. We can't show the ads.
Any cost a honeycut.
What is interesting about this is it automatically drafts all the emails to send to all the people as well. So it sends emails to everybody, notifying them, connecting them back to the source of truth. If the subcontractor is in build ops and McCarthy's in Procore, those nodes connect. I think it's an interesting use case of tracking an issue through the full life cycle, which historically Procore and Autodesk have failed at doing.
Okay, but are you blown away by that example? Because based on the recommendations, it looks okay.
I don't think AI has anything to do with this, and I think there is a ton of value in it. And I think there's a key thing in the assumption that the PM is the user. If you look at what Mike's like pull string go on Turner making money on 0% CM fee. If you look at one of the things we consistently see is large general contractors getting much more sophisticated about their businesses, where they have many more potential revenue lines, and then those revenue lines are much better integrated and controlled across a national portfolio. And so I didn't actually watch the live stream. This looks to me like an actual ERP system, right? Construction companies, when they talk about ERP, it's actually accounting. That's all that gets done. This is an actual ERP implementation across nationally centralized equipment yards, nationally centralized procurement, and all the project teams. And so I'm not impressed by the AI piece either, but the fact that someone in St. Louis, in McCarthy's case, could actually know every air handler that's planning to be purchased on every project across the country.
That is very cool.
That's a big fucking deal.
Yeah, that is.
And new, right?
So who feels the pressure here? Is this Jonas? Is this Procore? Because I gotta imagine it's kind of both of them. But I just don't know enough about the Palantir solution to know who feels threatened.
If you look at I don't know that that's true. If you look at these companies, do they, if you fast forward a few years, do they look like construction companies of 10 years ago where they have 0.5% spend on technology, or do they look more like diversified manufacturing companies where margins are definitely going up? They're more sophisticated organizations running more from a central office and with less authority devolved out to projects. It might just be incremental spend.
Yeah.
At least
they can push it back to the owners.
Yeah. Well, the other way to look at it is you're one of the consistent themes in this is leveraging aggregated demand for goods and services. So the other place we get pushback is to OEMs of equipment and materials, right? If you're being smarter about purchasing across whatever a multi-billion-dollar volume, as opposed to purchasing project by project, you're probably getting a better deal. So maybe it's the OEMs, maybe it's the downstream providers get beat up.
It was that if you listen to the old podcast, it was my bet on what if Turner signed a Palantir agreement, the same thing. It's how do I get insight into what equipment rentals are needed on a job site, and how do I leverage first equipment to facilitate that and move nodes around?
Or even
it's actually creating a true supply chain.
Be needed a year from now or 2 years from now, right, so that I can make good decisions about the volume we're going to have purchased versus the rental agreement volume that we're going to have to cover it.
Yeah. And I think the friction point that's going to happen is if it's a $10 million a year cost for a Palantir subscription, on top of what you're spending at Procore and Autodesk, they're probably doubling, maybe even tripling their tech spend because of this. Is there ROI in that? Is them save it? They said again, this is it's going back to this principle, but is rework actually attributed back to the GEC or the owner? So that example, they saved somebody $160,000 by not reworking the concrete pad for the air handling unit. That $160,000 does not go into McCarthy's pocket. ever. That unless it's a lump sum project, but they're not doing lump sum projects. So that $160,000 is now going back to the owner. So when you're evaluating the $10 million of spend, do you stack up to enough of we always say 5x ROI to $50 million in savings a year on rework-ish, which is fuzzy. It's tough. It's a tough. So that's going back to the initial point around token spend.
I think that's a digestible example for an AI for a marketing presentation for their vendor. I don't think that's
Correct.
I don't think it's rework.
Right. So then the other lens is we're having a hard time hiring people because young people want to work on tech forward solutions. So now we're investing $10 million a year as a tool so that when we hire a mechanical engineer out of college, they want to work with McCarthy because we have Palantir and the competitor down the street.
I don't know.
There's something there too.
Maybe.
I think that's a fringe. You have to hire 1,000 people a year. Like
McCarthy, what's total top line? What's total top line at McCarthy?
5
billion.
I asked.
Maybe
5 or 6
days, single digit.
Well, I got it.
Got it. And so spending 10 million a year on Palantir. Okay, that makes sense. It's probably comparable to what they're spending on Procore. You have to imagine that based on what Procore is offering, that Palantir is likely to go into that space because, Procore's built a very impressive system, but you can rebuild these things because they really are like database wrappers with like workflows. And look, I've spoken to people who have purchased Palantir, and the way Palantir works is like you have a first initial period where you're literally building proofs of value or proof of concept. And they ask you, what do you want to build? You can tell them like, I want to build an expense management solution. I want to build a PMIS. And then they go build it with Palantir. And then they aggregate those things and they offer those like a la carte. So I think over time, I do think it's going to be very competitive with Procore and Autodesk. I think Autodesk is really well situated in that sense because, they're going up and down the stack. But I think Procore probably should be a little bit concerned.
It's like, what fraction of Procore's revenue comes from the NR 400 even?
Majority.
Oh, okay. Never mind then. Yeah.
They're not a small business. They don't sell. They do sell small business.
I thought that was like a tongue-in-cheek question.
I can't remember. I've only had one cup of coffee.
1.375 billion revenue. Palantir's revenue is $7 billion because someone's pushback was
That's it?
Yeah.
Oh, they're going to struggle to displace Procore because like all the tools we just looked at, you don't have to drive distribution across all the offices. Like, I need to plan. I need to use. It's like an IT team needs it, and you need integrations into the applications that people are already using, right? Like the grind in construction technology is implementation, and like that's the distribution that Procore has.
But isn't that then bullish for Palantir because they have a purely consulting model and they literally ship engineers on site to make it work?
Yeah.
It seems like it's bullish.
If McCarthy is starting to do this, I would be bullish on SAP. I would be bullish on Oracle. I would be bullish on McCarthy's ability to expand into the technology needs of these increasingly sophisticated general contractor businesses.
When you say bullish on SAP, you think it's bearish for SAP, but bullish for
No. I would be bullish on SAP. I look. I mean, I could be wrong, but I look at this and I see like this looks like a big ERP with a really good demo on top of it. Like,
yeah,
it's not bad.
It seems like it's data unification and then whatever custom workflow you want.
Yeah. And there's a ton of new workflows and a ton of new data as these businesses aggressively stand up like new business lines. And then as they look to integrate those business lines nationally, as opposed to letting it run at the regional or project level.
Okay. So predictions, Andrew and Mike, in 3 years, do you think Palantir will take market share away from Procore or Autodesk, or will it be additive? What do you guys think, Mike?
I think it's outside of construction growth. It will not beat inflation. What I mean by that is I think that both revenues will grow because of like Marhay, we're growing 20% year over year. I don't think you see a Procore in 3 years that's at $1.37 billion of revenue or less, and Palantir at construction absorbing the growth on top of that.
I think it'll trade off. I can see them becoming competitive because once you unify all the data, I don't know, it feels like because of their model where they are going to be taking individual workflows from various companies and just selling to the next company, like over time, it feels like they'll just get there.
So this is crazy. So Autodesk is a year ahead because they do the Salesforce numbers. So they're in fiscal year 20. They're already in fiscal year 27. But that's
Can you
what it
zoom in?
looks like right now.
Can you zoom in?
Yeah.
Just control and plus or scroll.
That's all that Palantir does. Fuck, growing 50%
Is
year
that
over year.
is that construction revenue or is that full?
No, this is all Palantir revenue. They're
That's-
projecting.
price to
They're
earnings is
projecting $7
ridiculous.
billion.
They live rent free in everyone's head.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. I know it's 10 o'clock.
Nice guys. See you, man.